The silence in our home had become deafening since Richard passed away 3 months ago. For 43 years, our house on Maple Street in Columbus had been filled with laughter, conversations, and the comfortable sounds of a life shared. Now, it echoed with memories and the hollow footsteps of a woman learning to live alone. My name is Patricia Lambert. I'm 66 years old, and until that Tuesday morning in October, I thought I knew everything about the man I'd loved for nearly half a century. Richard had been my high school sweetheart, my college companion, my partner through every triumph and tragedy life had thrown our way. We'd raised 3 beautiful children together, celebrated countless anniversaries, and I believed we'd shared every secret 2 people could share. I was preparing for our annual family Thanksgiving gathering, the first one without Richard. Our children, Michael, Sarah, and Jennifer, were all coming home with their families. It was going to be emotional enough without Richard's warm presence at the head of our dining room table. I'd been putting off going through his belongings, but with the family coming, I knew I needed to clear out his closet to make room for our guests' coats. That morning, I climbed the stairs to our bedroom with a heavy heart and several empty boxes. The autumn light filtered through our lace curtains, casting familiar shadows across the hardwood floors Richard had installed himself 20 years ago. His side of the bed still looked like he might return any moment, his reading glasses on the nightstand, his favorite mystery novel bookmarked at page 247. I opened his wardrobe doors and breathed in the lingering scent of his cologne, mixed with the cedar sachets I'd placed among his clothes years ago. As I began folding his shirts, the blue one he wore to Sarah's graduation, the flannel he gardened in every weekend, I noticed something odd. There was a small gap behind the massive oak wardrobe, just wide enough for my fingers to fit through. Richard had always been meticulous about furniture placement. In all our years together, nothing in our home was ever crooked or out of place. This gap seemed intentional, purposeful. My heart began racing as I pressed my shoulder against the heavy wardrobe and slowly pushed it aside. The wood groaned against the floor, and I winced, hoping the neighbors wouldn't hear. Behind the wardrobe was a narrow door, painted the same cream color as our bedroom walls. It was so cleverly hidden that I'd never noticed it in all our years living here. The brass handle was tarnished, as if it hadn't been used recently, but the hinges moved smoothly when I turned the knob. I took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness. The room was small, perhaps 6 feet by 8 feet, with no windows. When I found the light switch, a single bare bulb illuminated what looked like Richard's private sanctuary. There was a small desk, a chair, and filing cabinets lined against the walls. But what made my blood run cold were the dozens of photographs scattered across every surface. They were intimate photos, Richard with woman after woman, in various states of undress, in locations I didn't recognize. Some were clearly from years ago, judging by Richard's younger appearance and the dated clothing and hairstyles. Others looked more recent. My hands trembled as I moved from photo to photo, each one feeling like a dagger to my heart. The women were all different: blonde, brunette, young, older. Some I thought I vaguely recognized from around town. But it was the last photograph, sitting prominently on the desk, that made my knees buckle. When I got closer and saw who was in it, I went pale and started to tremble uncontrollably. The woman in Richard's arms, kissing him passionately in what appeared to be a hotel room, was wearing a distinctive pearl necklace, the same necklace I'd given to my daughter-in-law, Jennifer, as a wedding gift 5 years ago. Before I continue this devastating story of betrayal and family secrets, I want to ask you to please like this video if you're finding it compelling. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible true family stories, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Your support means everything to me as I share this painful but important story. The photograph was dated just 6 months ago, while Richard was still alive, while we were still celebrating what I thought was our happy marriage. The silence in our home had become deafening since Richard passed away 3 months ago. For 43 years, our house on Maple Street in Columbus had been filled with laughter, conversations, and the comfortable sounds of a life shared. Now, it echoed with memories and the hollow footsteps of a woman learning to live alone. My name is Patricia Lambert. I'm 66 years old, and until that Tuesday morning in October, I thought I knew everything about the man I'd loved for nearly half a century. Richard had been my high school sweetheart, my college companion, my partner through every triumph and tragedy life had thrown our way. We'd raised 3 beautiful children together, celebrated countless anniversaries, and I believed we'd shared every secret 2 people could share. I was preparing for our annual family Thanksgiving gathering, the first one without Richard. Our children, Michael, Sarah, and Jennifer, were all coming home with their families. It was going to be emotional enough without Richard's warm presence at the head of our dining room table. I'd been putting off going through his belongings, but with the family coming, I knew I needed to clear out his closet to make room for our guests' coats. That morning, I climbed the stairs to our bedroom with a heavy heart and several empty boxes. The autumn light filtered through our lace curtains, casting familiar shadows across the hardwood floors Richard had installed himself 20 years ago. His side of the bed still looked like he might return any moment, his reading glasses on the nightstand, his favorite mystery novel bookmarked at page 247. I opened his wardrobe doors and breathed in the lingering scent of his cologne, mixed with the cedar sachets I'd placed among his clothes years ago. As I began folding his shirts, the blue one he wore to Sarah's graduation, the flannel he gardened in every weekend, I noticed something odd. There was a small gap behind the massive oak wardrobe, just wide enough for my fingers to fit through. Richard had always been meticulous about furniture placement. In all our years together, nothing in our home was ever crooked or out of place. This gap seemed intentional, purposeful. My heart began racing as I pressed my shoulder against the heavy wardrobe and slowly pushed it aside. The wood groaned against the floor, and I winced, hoping the neighbors wouldn't hear. Behind the wardrobe was a narrow door, painted the same cream color as our bedroom walls. It was so cleverly hidden that I'd never noticed it in all our years living here. The brass handle was tarnished, as if it hadn't been used recently, but the hinges moved smoothly when I turned the knob. I took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness. The room was small, perhaps 6 feet by 8 feet, with no windows. When I found the light switch, a single bare bulb illuminated what looked like Richard's private sanctuary. There was a small desk, a chair, and filing cabinets lined against the walls. But what made my blood run cold were the dozens of photographs scattered across every surface. They were intimate photos, Richard with woman after woman, in various states of undress, in locations I didn't recognize. Some were clearly from years ago, judging by Richard's younger appearance and the dated clothing and hairstyles. Others looked more recent. My hands trembled as I moved from photo to photo, each one feeling like a dagger to my heart. The women were all different. Blonde, brunette, young, older, some I thought I vaguely recognized from around town. But it was the last photograph, sitting prominently on the desk, that made my knees buckle. When I got closer and saw who was in it, I went pale and started to tremble uncontrollably. The woman in Richard's arms, kissing him passionately in what appeared to be a hotel room, was wearing a distinctive pearl necklace, the same necklace I'd given to my daughter-in-law Jennifer as a wedding gift 5 years ago. Before I continue this devastating story of betrayal and family secrets, I want to ask you to please like this video if you're finding it compelling. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible true family stories, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Your support means everything to me as I share this painful but important story. The photograph was dated just 6 months ago, while Richard was still alive, while we were still celebrating what I thought was our happy marriage, Jennifer. My sweet daughter-in-law who had called me Mom Pat from the day she married my youngest son Michael 8 years ago. The woman I had welcomed into our family with open arms, who had given me 2 beautiful grandchildren, who had sat beside Richard's hospital bed during his final weeks, holding my hand and whispering prayers. I collapsed into the chair, my vision blurring with tears of rage and heartbreak. The photograph trembled in my shaking hands as I studied every devastating detail. There was no mistaking it was Jennifer, her distinctive auburn hair, that small scar on her chin from a childhood accident she'd told me about, and most damning of all, those pearls I'd spent 3 months' salary on as a special wedding gift. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I frantically searched through the filing cabinets, finding documents that painted an even more horrifying picture. Credit card statements showing expensive hotel stays, jewelry purchases, romantic dinners, all charged to a card I'd never seen before. There were love letters in Jennifer's handwriting, filled with promises and declarations that made my stomach turn. "My darling Richard," one letter read, "Michael suspects nothing. He's so buried in his work, just like you said he would be. Soon we can be together properly." The children adore you as their grandfather, and they'll understand when the time comes. I love you more than I ever loved him." Another letter, dated just 2 months before Richard's heart attack, contained words that felt like acid burning through my chest. "I can't wait much longer, my love. Patricia is getting suspicious about your frequent business trips. Maybe it's time to tell them both the truth. I'm tired of pretending to love Michael when all I think about is you." I found receipts for gifts Richard had never given me. Expensive lingerie, perfume, jewelry. Bank statements showed he'd been withdrawing large sums of cash regularly, sometimes $2,000 or $3,000 at a time. Over the past 3 years, I calculated he'd spent nearly $45,000 on this affair, money I thought he was investing in our retirement fund. The most devastating discovery was a life insurance policy I'd never known about, worth $150,000, with Jennifer listed as the sole beneficiary. Richard had taken it out just 2 years ago, paying the premiums from a secret account. All this time, I'd been managing our finances, or so I thought, while he was building a parallel financial life with my son's wife. I sat in that suffocating room for hours, piecing together a timeline of betrayal that stretched back at least 5 years. Every family gathering, every holiday dinner, every moment Jennifer had called me her second mother had been a lie. Every time Richard had kissed my forehead and told me he loved me, he'd been thinking of her. The cruelest realization was that they'd been planning a life together after Richard's retirement. I found floor plans for a house in Florida, vacation brochures, even preliminary divorce papers Richard had never filed. They'd been waiting, playing the long game, probably hoping I would die first so they wouldn't have to deal with the messiness of a public scandal. When I finally stumbled out of that room, my legs barely supporting me, I felt like a completely different person than the woman who'd entered it. The Patricia Lambert who had loved and trusted unconditionally was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of thoughts and feelings that terrified me. I sat on my bed, surrounded by Richard's clothes that now felt contaminated, and made a decision that would change everything. They thought I was just a naive old woman who'd never find out their secret. They thought they could continue their deception even after Richard's death, with Jennifer playing the grieving daughter-in-law while secretly celebrating her financial windfall. They were wrong, dead wrong. For 3 days, I kept Richard's secret locked away, but the knowledge burned inside me like acid. I watched my family prepare for Thanksgiving, observed Jennifer as she helped me plan the menu and set the table, all while knowing the truth about her duplicitous heart. The rage was consuming me, but I forced myself to wait for the right moment. Jennifer arrived early on Thanksgiving morning with my grandchildren, Emma and Luke, ages 6 and 4. She kissed my cheek and handed me a beautiful bouquet of chrysanthemums, Richard's favorite flowers. "I thought Grandpa would have wanted these on the table," she said with what I now recognized as perfectly practiced sincerity. The irony of her gesture made my hands clench. This woman had been sleeping with my husband, planning to steal him from me, and now she was using his memory to manipulate my emotions. I wanted to scream, to tear those fake tears from her eyes, but I maintained my composure. "How thoughtful, dear," I managed, my voice steady despite the hurricane raging inside me. "Richard always said you understood him better than anyone." The double meaning of my words was lost on her, but I savored the bitter truth of them. She did understand him. Understood his weaknesses, his vanities, his capacity for betrayal in ways I'd been too trusting to see. As the day progressed, I watched Jennifer with new eyes, the way she touched objects that had been Richard's, the knowing smiles she gave when others shared memories of him, the calculated way she comforted me when I became emotional about his absence. It was all performance, all manipulation. When Michael arrived with Sarah and her family, I studied my youngest son's face, searching for any signs that he suspected his wife's betrayal. He looked tired but happy, proud as he watched Jennifer interact with our extended family. He had no idea his wife had been systematically destroying our family for years. During dinner preparation, Jennifer cornered me in the kitchen. "Mom, Pat, I've been thinking about something," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "I know money's probably getting tight now that Grandpa's gone. Michael and I were talking, and we want to help with the mortgage payments or anything else you need." The audacity took my breath away. Here she was, sitting on a $150,000 insurance policy that rightfully belonged to me, offering to help with money that was essentially stolen from our family. I gripped the carving knife so tightly, my knuckles went white. "That's very generous," I replied carefully. "But I think Richard left me better provided for than anyone realizes." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, perhaps even fear. "Oh? Did you find some accounts you didn't know about?" The question confirmed what I'd suspected. She was fishing, trying to determine if I'd discovered their secret financial arrangements. I decided to test her further. "You know how thorough Richard was with his planning," I said, watching her reaction carefully. "He made sure to take care of everyone he loved, everyone who was special to him." Jennifer's face went pale, and I saw her swallow hard. That's wonderful. He was such a caring man." "Indeed he was. He had such capacity for love. Sometimes I think he loved too much, if you know what I mean." Now she was visibly uncomfortable, fidgeting with those damned pearls around her neck. My pearls, marking her as Richard's lover. "I'm not sure I understand." "Oh, I think you understand perfectly, Jennifer." The kitchen fell silent, except for the bubbling of the cranberry sauce on the stove. Jennifer's eyes darted toward the door, calculating her escape route, but I stepped closer. "Tell me," I continued, my voice deadly calm, "when you wear those beautiful pearls I gave you for your wedding, do you remember what I said when I gave them to you?" No, I don't remember. "I told you they represented the purity and honesty that should define a marriage. I told you to wear them whenever you needed to remember those values." I leaned closer, close enough to see the panic in her eyes. "Do you wear them often, Jennifer?" She backed against the counter, trapped. "Mom, Pat, you're scaring me." "Good," I whispered, "because I'm just getting started." The Thanksgiving dinner that followed was a masterpiece of tension disguised as normalcy. I watched Jennifer struggle to maintain her composure, barely eating, constantly touching those pearls at her throat like a nervous habit. Michael noticed her distress and kept asking if she was feeling well, which only added to her obvious panic. After dinner, as the family gathered in the living room for our traditional sharing of gratitudes, I decided it was time to begin my revenge. Standing by the fireplace where Richard's photo smiled down at us, I cleared my throat for attention. "Before we share what we're grateful for this year," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room, "I want to tell you all about something wonderful I discovered recently, something that shows just how deeply Richard loved this family." Jennifer's face had gone completely white. She gripped the arm of her chair so tightly I could see her knuckles. "You see, I found some things of Richard's that I'd never seen before. Photos, letters, documents that paint such a vivid picture of his. Relationships with the people he cared about most." Michael smiled warmly. "Dad always was sentimental. What kind of things did you find?" "Oh, love letters. Beautiful, passionate love letters that show a side of Richard I thought I knew, but clearly didn't understand completely." I paused, letting my eyes find Jennifer's terrified face. "And photographs. So many photographs of special moments, private moments, intimate moments with someone very dear to him." Sarah leaned forward with interest. "That sounds lovely, Mom. It must be comforting to see how much he loved you." I smiled, but it was the smile of a predator circling wounded prey. "Actually, sweetheart, these weren't photos of me." The room fell silent. Michael's expression shifted from warmth to confusion. "What do you mean?" "I mean your father was having an affair. A long, passionate, expensive affair with someone sitting in this very room." The explosion of voices was immediate. Sarah gasped. Michael shot to his feet demanding answers, and the children started crying at the sudden chaos. But I only watched Jennifer, who had gone from white to green and looked like she might vomit. "That's impossible," Michael shouted. "Dad would never—" "He would, and he did," I interrupted, my voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "For at least 5 years, your father was betraying our marriage, spending our retirement money, and planning a new life with his lover." Jennifer finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Mom, Pat, please." "Please what, Jennifer? Please don't tell them how you've been playing the devoted daughter-in-law while sleeping with my husband. Please don't mention the $45,000 he spent on you over 3 years. Please don't tell them about the secret life insurance policy naming you as beneficiary." Michael's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, and finally rage. He turned to his wife, his voice barely controlled. "Jennifer, tell me this isn't true." Jennifer's breakdown was spectacular. Years of guilt and deception came pouring out in heaving sobs. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It just happened. I never meant for it to go so far. How long? Michael demanded, his voice deadly quiet. 5 years, Jennifer whispered. The sound that came from my son was barely human. He lunged toward his wife, but Sarah caught his arm. The children were screaming now, terrified by the adult's behavior. Emma ran to Jennifer, wrapping her small arms around her mother's legs. "Mommy, why is everyone yelling?" she cried. The sight of my innocent grandchildren caught in this nightmare brought me back to reality for a moment. But then I looked at Jennifer, using Emma as a shield, and my fury reignited. "Tell him about the letters," I demanded. "Tell him about the plans to leave us both. Tell him how you've been lying to his face every single day for 5 years. Jennifer was sobbing uncontrollably now. "I loved him. I really loved him." "You loved his money," I shot back. "You loved what he could give you, just like you loved that insurance policy you thought I'd never find." Michael's voice was barely recognizable. Get out of my mother's house. Get out now. "Please, Michael, let me explain." "There is no explanation for this," he roared. And that was when Jennifer showed her true colors. Standing up, her tears drying with startling speed, she looked at me with pure hatred. "You want the truth? Fine. Richard told me you were cold, passionless, that he hadn't felt alive in years until he met me. He said you were just going through the motions of marriage, that you made him feel old and boring." The words hit me like physical blows, but I refused to let her see me break. "He was planning to leave you," she continued, her voice growing stronger with cruelty. "Right after his retirement, he was going to file for divorce, and we were going to start fresh in Florida. He said he'd wasted enough years on a woman who didn't appreciate him. The aftermath of that Thanksgiving dinner was like watching my family explode into 1,000 pieces. Michael left immediately with the children, his face a mask of betrayal and rage. Sarah stayed to help me clean up, her own shock evident as she moved mechanically through the house, gathering leftover food with shaking hands. Jennifer's parting words haunted me through the sleepless nights that followed. Had Richard really said those things about me? Had our marriage truly been so hollow that he felt justified in betraying me so completely? I found myself questioning every moment of our 43 years together, wondering what had been real and what had been performance. But by Monday morning, my grief had crystallized into something harder, more focused. I wasn't going to let Richard's betrayal destroy what remained of my family, and I certainly wasn't going to let Jennifer walk away with $150,000 of what should have been my security. I made my first call to James Morrison, the lawyer who had handled Richard's will. His shock was genuine when I explained what I'd discovered. "Patricia, I had no knowledge of any secondary insurance policy," he assured me. "If Richard had disclosed this during our estate planning sessions, I would have insisted it be included in his will documentation. This feels deliberately hidden. What are my options, James?" "Well, insurance fraud is a serious matter. If Richard misrepresented his marital situation when applying for the policy, or if Jennifer knew she was listed as beneficiary on a policy funded with marital assets, we might have grounds for legal action." The investigation that followed revealed the depth of their deception. Richard had listed himself as divorced on the insurance application, claiming Jennifer as his fiancée. He'd used a P.O. box I'd never known about and a cell phone number Jennifer paid for. They'd created an entirely fabricated relationship history for the insurance company. Even more damaging was what my private investigator uncovered about Jennifer's own deceptions. She'd been systematically copying Richard's business contacts, planning to use his insurance connections to start her own agency after his retirement. The affair hadn't just been romantic, it had been a calculated business move. When I presented Michael with this evidence, watching his face cycle through disbelief, hurt, and finally cold fury, I felt both vindicated and heartbroken. This was my son discovering that his wife had been planning to leave him financially and professionally devastated. "She played us all," he said quietly, staring at the documents. "Even Dad. She was using him just as much as he was betraying you." That week, Jennifer made her first mistake since the revelation. She tried to claim the insurance money, filing the paperwork with what she clearly thought was appropriate grieving widow timing. But our lawyer was ready. The insurance company froze the claim pending investigation into potential fraud. Jennifer's lawyer, a slick young man in an expensive suit, called me directly. "Mrs. Lambert, my client is prepared to be reasonable about this situation. She's willing to split the insurance money with you 50-50 in recognition of the complicated circumstances. I laughed, actually laughed out loud. Your client committed insurance fraud and adultery, destroyed my marriage and my son's marriage, and traumatized my grandchildren. She's willing to give me half of money that was stolen from me in the first place? The legal reality is more complex than that. The legal reality, I interrupted, is that your client is about to face criminal charges for fraud. But please, do encourage her to fight this. I have 43 years of documentation about our marriage, our joint finances, and our shared life. How much documentation does she have of being Richard's legitimate partner? The call ended quickly after that. But Jennifer wasn't giving up easily. Her next move was to weaponize my grandchildren, using them as emotional blackmail. She brought Emma and Luke to my house one evening. Both children clearly coached on what to say. "Grandma Pat," little Emma said with tears in her eyes, "Mommy says you're trying to take our house away. Why are you mad at Mommy?" The cruelty of using innocent children as weapons in this war pushed me past my breaking point. I knelt down to Emma's level, my heart breaking for these babies caught in their mother's web of lies. "Sweetheart, Grandma would never take your house away, but sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and other grown-ups have to fix them. Do you understand?" Jennifer stood in my doorway, no longer bothering to hide her calculating nature. "Patricia, this doesn't have to get ugly. Those kids need their mother, and I need that insurance money to provide for them. You should have thought about providing for them before you destroyed their family," I replied, standing to face her. That's when she showed her final, most vicious card. "I have letters, Patricia. Love letters Richard wrote to me. Letters where he says things about you that would destroy any good memories your children have of their father. Push me too far, and I'll make sure those letters become public. Your precious family reputation will be ruined forever." The threat hung in the air between us like poison gas. Jennifer's threat to release Richard's letters pushed me into a fury unlike anything I'd ever experienced. For 3 days, I couldn't eat or sleep, imagining my children and grandchildren reading their father and grandfather's cruel words about me, seeing their memories of him forever tainted by his betrayal. But on the 4th day, something shifted inside me. I realized that Jennifer had just made a fatal error. She'd revealed that she was willing to destroy innocent children's memories of their grandfather to get what she wanted. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about protecting my family from a woman with no moral boundaries. I called an emergency meeting with Michael and Sarah at my lawyer's office. When I explained Jennifer's threat, the look of disgust on my children's faces gave me hope that we could still salvage something from this wreckage. "She'd really do that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "She'd poison Emma and Luke's memories of their grandfather just to get insurance money?" "That's exactly what she's threatening," I confirmed, which tells us everything we need to know about who we're really dealing with. Michael's jaw was set in a line I recognized from his childhood when he'd been wronged. "Then we fight her with everything we have." Our lawyer had been busy during those 3 days, and his news was encouraging. "The insurance company is now fully cooperating with our fraud investigation. They've discovered that Jennifer had knowledge of the policy terms before Richard's death. There are email exchanges between her and the insurance agent that show she was actively involved in setting up the policy structure. Even better, my private investigator had uncovered Jennifer's own financial deceptions. She'd been skimming money from the household account she shared with Michael, moving it into a private account she'd opened using her maiden name. Over 2 years, she'd stolen nearly $18,000 from my son while planning to leave him. "We have enough evidence to pursue both civil and criminal charges," the lawyer explained. "But there's something else you should know. Jennifer's lawyer contacted me yesterday. She wants to negotiate." The negotiation meeting was set for the following Friday. Jennifer arrived with 2 lawyers now, the slick young man and an older woman who specialized in family law. They'd clearly realized this wasn't going to be the easy payout they'd expected. Jennifer herself looked haggard, her earlier confidence replaced by barely concealed desperation. She'd lost weight, and her hands shook as she placed a folder on the conference table. "We're prepared to make a fair offer," her main lawyer began. "My client will relinquish all claims to the insurance policy in exchange for assurance that no criminal charges will be filed, and that Mrs. Lambert will not pursue civil damages for the affair." I looked across the table at this woman who had destroyed my marriage, betrayed my son, and threatened to traumatize my grandchildren. "Absolutely not. Mrs. Lambert, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable," I interrupted. Reasonable would be accepting responsibility for fraud, adultery, theft, and child endangerment. Your client has stolen over $60,000 from my family through various schemes. She's traumatized 4 innocent children. She's destroyed 2 marriages. And she threatens to further traumatize those children if we don't pay her to go away quietly. Jennifer finally spoke, her voice shaky. Patricia, I never meant for any of this to happen. I loved Richard, I really did. You loved what Richard could give you, I corrected. Money, status, a way out of the responsibilities of being a wife and mother. But love? No. Love doesn't involve systematically destroying the lives of innocent people. Her second lawyer, the family specialist, tried a different approach. What about the children? Emma and Luke need their mother. If this goes to trial, the publicity alone will damage them. That was when Sarah, who had been quietly furious throughout the meeting, finally exploded. Don't you dare use those children as shields. You've already damaged them by destroying their family. You've coached them to manipulate their grandmother. You've stolen their financial security and eliminated their college funds. And now you want us to pay you to stop damaging them further? I want what's fair, Jennifer said, tears flowing again, though by now I recognized them as tactical rather than genuine. Fair? Michael spoke for the first time, his voice deadly calm. Fair would be you returning every penny you've stolen. Fair would be you confessing to Emma and Luke that you destroyed their family through your own choices. Fair would be you serving jail time for fraud. We're prepared to consider reduced charges, our lawyer interjected, in exchange for full restitution of all stolen funds, relinquishing all claims to any policies or assets obtained through fraud, and Jennifer's agreement to supervised visitation with the children only. The room fell silent. Jennifer's lawyers huddled briefly before responding. That's completely unacceptable. You'd be leaving my client with nothing. I leaned forward, meeting Jennifer's eyes across the table. You left yourself with nothing the moment you decided to betray my family. The only question now is whether you'll face the consequences with some dignity or whether we'll drag every sordid detail through public court proceedings. Jennifer's composure finally cracked completely. You're all acting like Richard was some innocent victim. He pursued me. He told me he was unhappy. He made the choice to have the affair. You're absolutely right, I agreed, surprising everyone in the room. Richard made terrible choices. Richard betrayed his family. Richard was selfish and cruel. But Richard is dead, and you're not. You're sitting here trying to profit from that betrayal, trying to steal from his children and grandchildren, threatening to further traumatize innocents to get money you have no right to. The meeting ended with no agreement, which was exactly what I'd expected. 3 weeks after the failed negotiation, Jennifer made her most desperate and revealing move yet. She contacted Emma's school counselor, claiming that I was mentally unstable and potentially dangerous to the children. According to her story, I was suffering from grief-induced delusions about Richard's fidelity and was threatening to kidnap Emma and Luke. The school counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, called me directly before involving any authorities, which saved me from a potentially devastating situation. Mrs. Lambert, I wanted to speak with you personally because Jennifer's claims don't match what I know about your family or your character, but I'm legally required to investigate any claims involving child safety. I invited Mrs. Rodriguez to my home that afternoon, along with Michael and our family lawyer. I showed her everything: the hidden room, the photographs, the financial documents, the insurance fraud evidence. I also provided her with character references from my longtime neighbors, my pastor, and my volunteer organizations. I understand this must be incredibly stressful, Mrs. Rodriguez said, after reviewing everything. But your response has been entirely appropriate given the circumstances. If anything, you've shown remarkable restraint. What Mrs. Rodriguez told us next changed everything. I feel I should mention that this isn't the first time Jennifer has made concerning claims about family members. Last year, she tried to convince us that Michael was emotionally abusing Emma because he wouldn't buy her an expensive toy. When we investigated, we discovered Jennifer had been coaching Emma to lie about the situation. This revelation opened a floodgate of information we hadn't known before. Michael contacted Emma's teachers, Luke's daycare providers, and other parents in their social circle. The picture that emerged was disturbing. Jennifer had been manipulating and coaching the children for years, using them to get sympathy, special treatment, and financial benefits. She told the PTA I was alcoholic to get out of volunteering, Michael said, his voice hollow. She convinced the neighbors I was having an affair to get sympathy and free babysitting. She's been systematically lying about our family for years. The most damaging discovery came from Jennifer's own sister, Rebecca, who called me directly after hearing about the school incident. "Patricia, I can't stay quiet anymore. Jennifer has been planning this for over a year. She showed me the insurance policy last Christmas, bragging about how she was going to be set for life when Richard died." Rebecca's testimony was devastating. According to her, Jennifer had actively hoped for Richard's death, even going so far as to encourage his risky behaviors. His heavy drinking, his refusal to take his heart medication regularly, his high-stress lifestyle. She said old men have heart attacks all the time, and no one questions it, Rebecca told our lawyer during her formal statement. She was counting on it happening sooner rather than later. This information transformed our civil case into something much more serious. The prosecutor's office became interested in potential manslaughter charges. If Jennifer had deliberately encouraged behavior that led to Richard's heart attack, she could be criminally liable for his death. But Jennifer's most shocking response to these developments was to abandon her children entirely. When Child Services opened their investigation based on the pattern of manipulation and false reporting, Jennifer simply vanished. She emptied what remained in her bank accounts, packed a single suitcase, and left town without a word to Emma or Luke. Michael found her goodbye note on their kitchen table. "I can't fight Patricia's money and lawyers. The kids are better off with their father anyway. Don't try to find me." The abandonment was heartbreaking for the children, but it also solved several of our legal problems. With Jennifer gone, Michael was awarded emergency custody, and the insurance company immediately released the frozen funds to me as Richard's legal widow. But the victory felt hollow watching my grandchildren struggle to understand why their mother had left them. Emma, especially, seemed to blame herself, convinced that if she'd been a better daughter, Mommy wouldn't have gone away. I moved into Michael's house temporarily to help with the children and to provide stability during this traumatic time. Those first few weeks were some of the hardest of my life, dealing with my own grief and betrayal while trying to help two small children process their abandonment. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While organizing Jennifer's belongings for storage, Emma found a hidden box in her mother's closet. Inside were more photographs of Jennifer and Richard, along with a journal Jennifer had kept detailing her manipulation strategies. Reading her own mother's words about how easy it was to manage the children's emotions and use them to get what she needed seemed to finally free Emma from her guilt. For the first time since Jennifer left, my granddaughter looked directly at me and said, "Grandma Pat, I'm glad Mommy's gone. She was mean to you." That's when I knew we were going to be okay. 6 months after Jennifer's abandonment, our family had found a new rhythm. Michael, Emma, Luke, and I had become a tight unit, supporting each other through the ongoing recovery from our shared trauma. The house felt more like a home than it had in years, filled with honest conversations and genuine affection, rather than the toxic undercurrents Jennifer had created. The legal proceedings were finally concluding in our favor. The insurance company had paid me the full $150,000, plus interest and legal fees, after their investigation confirmed deliberate fraud. Jennifer's abandoned bank accounts were frozen and eventually turned over to Michael as restitution for the money she'd stolen from their household. More importantly, we'd discovered additional assets Richard had hidden. My lawyer found a second bank account containing nearly $75,000, money Richard had apparently planned to use to start his new life with Jennifer. The account had been opened with forged documents using only his signature, making it legally mine as his widow. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was watching my grandchildren heal from their mother's psychological manipulation. With the help of a skilled family therapist, Emma and Luke were learning to trust their own feelings again, to understand that they weren't responsible for adult problems, and to feel secure in our love for them. Emma had become especially protective of me, often asking if I was feeling sad about Grandpa's bad choices and offering to help with household tasks. Her emotional intelligence astounded me. At only 6 years old, she seemed to understand that Richard's betrayal had hurt me deeply, but she never blamed him entirely. "Grandpa made mistakes," she told me one afternoon while we baked cookies together, "but Mommy made worse ones. Grandpa never left us." Luke, at 4, was more resilient in some ways, but struggled with nightmares about people leaving him. Our bedtime routine now included extra stories and reassurances that Daddy, Grandma Pat, and Emma would never disappear like Mommy had. The financial stability we'd recovered allowed us to make positive changes. I sold my house and used the proceeds to pay off Michael's mortgage entirely, ensuring that the children would never lose their home. We set up college funds for Emma and Luke with the insurance money, turning Richard's betrayal into something that would eventually benefit his grandchildren's futures. Michael returned to work with a new sense of purpose, no longer carrying the stress of supporting Jennifer's increasingly expensive lifestyle demands. His boss noticed the change immediately, commenting on Michael's improved focus and renewed enthusiasm for his job. "I feel like I've been holding my breath for years," Michael confided to me one evening. "I knew something was wrong, but I kept telling myself I was imagining things. Having the truth out in the open, as horrible as it was, feels like I can finally breathe again." Sarah visited more frequently now, bringing her own children for extended weekends that strengthened all our family bonds. She'd taken over organizing our holiday gatherings, determined to rebuild the traditions Jennifer had poisoned with her deception. "I want Emma and Luke to have the kind of family memories we had growing up," Sarah explained, "before everything got complicated. They deserve to feel that sense of belonging and security." The community response had been overwhelmingly supportive. Our neighbors, who had witnessed Jennifer's manipulative behavior over the years, rallied around us with meals, babysitting help, and emotional support. Many confided that they'd suspected something wasn't right about Jennifer, but hadn't known how to help. Mrs. Patterson, our next-door neighbor of 15 years, summed up the general sentiment. "That woman always made my skin crawl. Too sweet, too helpful, always with some crisis that needed attention. Your Richard was a fool to get mixed up with her, but at least now you can all move forward without her poison." The most unexpected support came from Richard's business colleagues. Many had worked with him for decades and were shocked by the revelations about his secret life. Instead of distancing themselves from our family, they created a memorial scholarship fund in Richard's name, specifically for children who had lost parents to poor decisions. "We want Richard's legacy to be about redemption and second chances for kids," explained his former business partner, "not about the mistakes he made at the end." I found myself surprisingly at peace with this approach. Richard's betrayal would always be part of our story, but it didn't have to define our future. We could transform his destructive choices into something constructive for other families facing similar challenges. The therapy sessions had taught us all valuable lessons about forgiveness, not for Jennifer or Richard's benefit, but for our own healing. Emma understood this concept better than most adults. "Forgiving doesn't mean what they did was okay," she told her therapist during a family session. "It means we don't want to be angry forever because being angry hurts us, not them." By the time autumn arrived again, marking a full year since Richard's death and 8 months since Jennifer's abandonment, we were truly thriving as a family unit. Nearly 18 months after discovering Richard's betrayal, I received the call I'd been waiting for. Jennifer had been found living in Phoenix under an assumed name, working as a waitress, and apparently planning to disappear permanently. Unfortunately for her, she'd made the mistake of applying for government benefits using false information, which triggered an investigation that led to her arrest. The extradition process took 3 months, during which I had ample time to prepare Emma and Luke for the possibility that their mother might return to face legal consequences. Our family therapist helped us navigate these conversations carefully, ensuring the children understood that justice wasn't about revenge, but about accountability. "When someone does something wrong," I explained to Emma during one of our talks, "there are consequences. Not to be mean, but to help them learn and to protect other people from being hurt the same way." Emma nodded solemnly. "Like when I get time out for hitting Luke, it's not because you hate me, it's because hitting is wrong." "Exactly, sweetheart." When Jennifer finally stood trial for insurance fraud, theft, and child abandonment, I was there in the courtroom every day, not out of vindictiveness, but because I wanted to see this chapter of our lives officially closed. Michael chose not to attend, focusing instead on maintaining stability for the children. But Sarah came with me for moral support. Jennifer looked dramatically different from the polished woman who had manipulated our family for years. She was thinner, her hair unkempt, and she had a haunted quality that spoke to 18 months of running and hiding. When she saw me in the courtroom, her face crumpled with what appeared to be genuine remorse for the first time since this ordeal began. Her court-appointed attorney tried to paint her as a victim of Richard's manipulation, but the prosecution's evidence was overwhelming. The journal entries detailing her calculated approach to destroying our family, the recorded conversations with her sister about hoping for Richard's death, the deliberate fraud in the insurance applications, it all painted a picture of a woman who had methodically planned to profit from family destruction. The most damaging testimony came from child welfare experts who had evaluated Emma and Luke. They testified about the long-term psychological damage caused by Jennifer's pattern of emotional manipulation and abandonment. The judge was visibly disturbed by their findings. "Mrs. Patterson," the judge said, using Jennifer's married name with obvious distaste, "your actions have caused immeasurable harm to multiple innocent victims. You exploited the trust of a family that welcomed you, manipulated children too young to protect themselves, and showed callous disregard for anyone's welfare but your own." Jennifer was sentenced to 4 years in prison for the fraud charges and 2 years for child abandonment, to be served concurrently. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to our family, though we all knew she had no assets left to claim. More importantly, she permanently lost all parental rights to Emma and Luke. The judge ruled that her abandonment and pattern of psychological manipulation made her unfit to parent, and that the children's welfare required severing all legal ties. As we left the courthouse, I felt a profound sense of closure. Justice had been served, but more importantly, my grandchildren were legally protected from any future attempts by their mother to disrupt their lives. The local newspaper covered the trial extensively, and the story gained national attention when a true crime podcast featured our case. I initially resisted the publicity, but eventually agreed to speak publicly about the importance of financial vigilance in marriages and the warning signs of psychological manipulation. "If sharing our story helps even one family avoid what we went through," I told the podcast host, "then something good will have come from all this pain." The media attention brought unexpected benefits. I received hundreds of letters from people who had experienced similar betrayals, many thanking me for having the courage to fight back. Several women wrote that my story had inspired them to investigate suspicious behavior in their own relationships. More gratifying were the financial education workshops I was invited to conduct at community centers and senior centers. I discovered a passion for helping other women understand the importance of maintaining awareness of family finances, regardless of how much they trusted their spouses. "Trust is beautiful," I would tell these audiences, "but verification is practical. You can love completely and still protect yourself wisely." The insurance company that had nearly been defrauded by Jennifer hired me as a consultant to help them identify red flags in policy applications. My experience gave me unique insights into how financial betrayal schemes operated, and I found deep satisfaction in helping prevent other families from experiencing what we had endured. Emma and Luke thrived during this period of resolution. Knowing that their mother could never return to hurt them again seemed to free them from fears they'd been carrying. Emma's grades improved dramatically, and Luke's nightmares finally stopped. Most importantly, they both expressed excitement about our future as a family. "We're better without Mommy," Emma told me matter-of-factly one day. "She made everyone sad and scared. Now we can just be happy." That simple observation from a 7-year-old captured exactly what I'd been feeling but couldn't articulate. We were better without the toxic influence that had been poisoning our family for years. 3 years have passed since I discovered Richard's secret room, and I can honestly say that our family is stronger now than it has been in decades. What seemed like the end of everything has become the foundation for something much more genuine and loving. Emma is now 9 years old and has grown into a remarkably resilient and wise little girl. She excels in school, leads by example with kindness toward other children, and has developed a special bond with me that I treasure deeply. She often tells people that I'm not just her grandmother, but her best grown-up friend. Luke, at 7, has retained his sweet nature while developing impressive emotional intelligence for his age. He still occasionally asks about his mother, but without the pain and confusion that once accompanied those questions. "Mommy made bad choices," he'll say simply, "but we made good ones." Michael has become the father he was always meant to be, no longer distracted by the stress of managing Jennifer's manipulations and demands. He's been promoted twice at work and recently started dating a wonderful woman named Carol, who has been patient and understanding about our family's complicated history. Carol's approach to our situation has been perfect. She's never tried to replace Jennifer as the children's mother, never pushed for faster integration into our family dynamics, and has genuine affection for Emma and Luke without any agenda. The children adore her, and I can see a future where our family continues to grow in healthy ways. Sarah's family has become even more central to our lives. Her children, now teenagers, have stepped up as protective older cousins to Emma and Luke. Family gatherings are joyful again, filled with laughter and honest communication rather than the underlying tension that Jennifer's presence always created. The financial recovery exceeded even my hopes. The insurance settlement, combined with the assets we recovered from Richard's hidden accounts, allowed me to establish a substantial trust fund for Emma and Luke's educations. More importantly, I was able to donate $50,000 to the local women's shelter, funding a program specifically designed to help women recognize and escape financial manipulation in relationships. My work as a financial fraud consultant has become more than just a job. It's become a mission. I've helped insurance companies, banks, and law enforcement agencies identify over 30 cases of spousal financial fraud in the past 2 years. Each case prevented represents a family spared from what we experienced. The speaking engagements continue to grow, and I've written a book about recognizing financial infidelity that will be published next year. The publisher believes it could help thousands of people protect themselves from similar betrayals. Richard's destructive choices are being transformed into tools that protect other families. Perhaps most surprisingly, I've found love again. David Chen, a widower I met at a grief support group, has become a dear friend who's slowly becoming something more. He lost his wife to cancer 5 years ago and understands both the pain of betrayal and the possibility of healing. Emma and Luke have given their enthusiastic approval to Mr. David, who brings them books and teaches them to play chess. Grandma Pat deserves someone nice, Emma announced after David's first dinner with our family. Mr. David makes you smile the real way, not the pretend way. Even the children's relationship with Richard's memory has found a healthy balance. We talk openly about how their grandfather was a good man who made terrible choices, how people can be both loving and hurtful, and how we can remember the good parts while learning from the bad parts. Emma has a photo of Richard on her dresser, not the formal family portrait, but a candid shot of him teaching her to ride a bicycle. I remember the good grandpa, she explains to anyone who asks, and I use the bad grandpa as a reminder to always tell the truth. The house has been completely transformed. Richard's former office is now a playroom for the children. The secret room has been sealed permanently and converted into additional storage space. Every room has been repainted in bright, cheerful colors chosen by Emma and Luke. Most importantly, there are no more secrets in our family. We've established traditions of honesty, weekly family meetings where anyone can voice concerns, and open discussions about money, relationships, and family decisions. The children are growing up understanding that love and trust are built through transparency, not blind faith. As I sit here writing this final chapter on a sunny Sunday afternoon, watching Luke teach David to play his favorite video game while Emma reads quietly in her favorite chair, I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. Not for the betrayal that started this journey, but for the strength we found to rebuild something better from the wreckage. Jennifer remains in prison and will be eligible for parole next year. We've made it clear through our attorney that we want no contact if she's released. Emma and Luke are legally protected from any attempts she might make to re-enter their lives, and they've both expressed that they have no interest in reconnecting with someone who abandoned them. We already have all the family we need, Luke said recently when asked about his mother's upcoming parole hearing. Why would we want someone who makes us sad when we have people who make us happy? The truth about Richard's betrayal will always be part of our story, but it's no longer the most important part. What matters now is how we've chosen to move forward, with honesty, resilience, love, and hope for the future. To everyone who has followed our journey, thank you for your support and encouragement. If our story has taught me anything, it's that families can survive even the most devastating betrayals if they commit to truth, support each other through the healing process, and refuse to let other people's destructive choices define their future. I encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more stories of family resilience and triumph over adversity. Please like this video if our story has resonated with you, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Your messages of support have meant more to our family than you'll ever know. Remember, you are stronger than you know. Families can heal from even the worst betrayals, and sometimes the ending of one story is just the beginning of a much better one.